John Lennon is one of the great artists in music history. You might think you know the legendary Beatle and acclaimed solo artist, but in this video, we're going to explore facts that you probably didn't know about the influential musician. Welcome to All Vips Celebrity Corner with Sarah. Today we're diving into one of music's all-time greats, the one and only John Lennon. Everyone knows the story of his days with the Beatles and Yoko Ono, and who hasn't heard his timeless solo track, Imagine? But here are 5 facts you probably didn't know about the music legend. Lennon was born in Liverpool, England back in 1940, and there are a few details about his early life that have gone under the radar in recent years. For starters, he was born John Winston Lennon and was actually named after the former Prime Minister Winston Churchill. Lennon's youth was also marked by tragedy, as his mother Julia died in a car accident when John was just 17 years old. The loss affected him deeply, and he'd later write the Beatles track Julia in her memory. She'd also taught John to play his first instrument, which was actually the banjo rather than guitar. John Lennon was married twice and had one son in each of his 2 marriages. Sean Lennon is John's younger son with Yoko Ono, and he was actually born on his father's 35th birthday. Though young Sean had one of the most famous fathers in the world, he later revealed that as a child he was unaware of his father's Beatles fame. But one day he happened to see the animated Beatles film Yellow Submarine on television. Confused about seeing his father in the movie, he asked John about it and only then learned of his remarkable history with the band. John Lennon was the man behind some of the most powerful songs in rock music history. But away from the studio, there was one common task the music genius struggled with mightily: driving a car. Lennon didn't get his driver's license until he was 24 years old, and he was known to be a very poor driver. And his struggles behind the wheel actually got dangerous in 1969. While driving with his family in the Scottish Highlands, Lennon crashed into a ditch. The collision sent him, Yoko Ono, and each of their children to the hospital. Lennon escaped without serious injuries, but he did require 17 stitches to close up a nasty head wound from the accident. Throughout his life, Lennon had the reputation for being a rebel. But maybe his most famous controversy came in 1966 when he said in an interview that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus. The bold comment led to protests and anger, especially in the United States. Ever the boundary pusher, Lennon actually hoped to again include Jesus as well as Adolf Hitler on the cover of the Beatles album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, just 1 year after the controversy. Both choices were rejected by the band's label, who feared further outrage with the release. With Beatle Paul McCartney, John Lennon formed one of music's ultimate songwriting duos. Now, much has been said about the pair's at times tumultuous relationship, which even descended into an ugly feud after the Beatles broke up. But the truth is that the ex-bandmates did repair their bond before Lennon's death in 1980. McCartney has revealed as much in recent years, and in Lennon's final interview, he also gave high praise to his friend. He said he'd personally chosen to work with only 2 people in his career, Paul McCartney and Yoko Ono. That ain't bad picking, Lennon said just days before his tragic murder at the age of 40. It's been over 50 years since the Beatles released their final album, but the band remains highly influential and popular today. You may think you know the story of the legendary British rock band, but in this video, we're going to explore facts that you probably didn't know about the Beatles. Welcome to All Vips Celebrity Corner with Sarah. Today we're diving into one of the biggest bands in music history, the Beatles. Everyone's heard of Beatlemania and timeless songs like Here Comes the Sun and Let It Be. But here are 5 facts you probably didn't know about the band who rewrote the history of popular music in just 1 decade. So, where did it all begin for the Beatles? Well, why don't we start with that band name? Where did it ever come from? The precise story is debated, but what's agreed is that an early version of the group named themselves in honor of Buddy Holly, whose band was called the Crickets. Earlier lineups of the Beatles went with the similar name of the Silver Beatles before changing the spelling and settling on just the Beatles in 1960. Most also know that Ringo Starr wasn't the original drummer for the band in its early days. Pete Best holds the unfortunate title as the drummer fired just before the band became a global phenomenon in the 1960s. But what's sometimes forgotten is that Ringo's transition into the band wasn't entirely a smooth one. When Starr joined the group, the Beatles hadn't yet released their debut album, but they were a popular live band with a following in the UK. When Best was ousted, he received rabid support from some fans who actually gave George Harrison a black eye and forced manager Brian Epstein to hire security. Yikes. But Ringo and his charming personality quickly won over the lively fan base. By the mid-1960s, the Beatles were on top of the music world, and they were also getting increasingly experimental, musically and personally. The band were among the leaders of bringing psychedelic trends to popular music. But for John Lennon and George Harrison, their introductions to psychedelics actually came without their consent during a wild party in 1965. There, Lennon and Harrison had their drinks spiked with LSD by the party's host. Recalling the incident, Lennon later said, "We were just insane. We were out of our heads." He and Harrison found the experience life-changing and encouraged their bandmates to try it. The experiences with the drug were reflected on the next Beatles album, Revolver, which includes the mind-bending song, Tomorrow Never Knows. The psychedelic track still sounds groundbreaking today. Speaking of Revolver, do you have a favorite Beatles album? Well, the band members do too, but even they can't agree on just one. For example, while the title of the Beatles album Sgt. Pepper's has also come to mean an artist's greatest work, Paul McCartney was actually the only Beatle to call it his favorite album. On the other hand, John Lennon was quoted in 1971 as saying he preferred the White Album to Sgt. Pepper's because he thought its music was far superior. George Harrison chose the lighter folk-styled album Rubber Soul, while Ringo Starr named Abbey Road as his top Beatles work. As for Beatles songs, ask Paul McCartney his favorites and he might just give you this answer. You Know My Name, Look Up the Number. Have you heard of it? It's the lesser-known B-side to the 1970 single Let It Be. Paul McCartney said in 2020 that he often calls it his favorite because it's a zany little B-side that nobody knows. The humorous track was one of the group's last, and it came out the year they broke up in 1970. We hope you learned something new about the Beatles today. Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share for more of All Vip's Celebrity Corner with Sarah. Thanks so much for watching.